On this episode of On the Move, we have episode 19 with Dr. Bill Barnes. Bill is a rancher from central Georgia, where he is an orthopedic surgeon, but also has a ranch and has started doing horsemanship clinics down there in Georgia. I know Bill, for me, and I know for you too, Ben, Bill has been quite the mentor to both of us and played a big role in our horsemanship journey. And it's funny, we get to talk to some big names, but sitting down with Bill now, it's like almost sitting down with a family member for me. But every conversation I have with him, I just really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, he means so much to the two of us. It was really enjoyable to have him on. And also, we talked about medicine quite a bit, heard some old stories from when he got started as a surgeon. And so I definitely heard some stories I've never even heard before, which is saying something, right? Because you and I have had many long, lively conversations with Bill on the back porch that ended up going all the way till 2:30 in the morning. So definitely enjoyable. Definitely a lot of fun to finally get Bill on here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely cool to see someone who came from a non-traditional path to get as good as he's gotten in horsemanship and gotten as far down the journey as he has. Um, so without further ado, here is episode 19 with Dr. Bill Barnes. Enjoy, everybody.
I don't even know what we're going to talk about because we already know you.
You lead, I'll follow.
That's what we do. That's what we always do. We got
Leroy Pound.
Leroy. Big
Leroy
old
Pound.
fancy dog. So Kaylee's going, though. Is she down in Florida?
She's in Tryon, North Carolina this week.
Okay.
Judging.
Okay.
Yeah, she's at the equestrian center there judging.
Judge not, lest you be judged.
Amen.
Well, she likes that too.
All right. Billy Money, Bill Barnes, whoever everyone knows you as, welcome on board.
Depending on who I'm hanging out with. Most people know me as Billy Money, only because of Ray Harmon and Buck Brannaman. But I'm Dr. Barnes or Bill Barnes or Billy Money.
Who do we call you when we're hanging out with you?
Whatever you like, I guess.
Sensei?
Yeah, you can call me that if you want to.
Or Uncle Bill.
Depends on who's around me. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I'm a man of many colors, a man of many names. But, you go through life and have a lot of different experiences and you get nicknames. I think nicknames are good. Ray Harmon, that's the first guy I ever met. That was a character with Buck, and that was like 2001, maybe. First clinic I ever actually rode in with Buck. And when I got there, I guess my reputation had preceded me, but he walked up to me and said, "Oh, yeah, you're that rich doctor." And he said, you got to have a nickname. And I said, "Really?" And so he says, "Yeah, you be Billy Money." I said, "Okay." So one thing led to the next and it kind of stuck. So first I was kind of irritated at first because Buck kept calling me Billy Money all the time. And I asked him, I didn't know why he did that. So especially after Ray died, Ray Harmon, I said, "Why do you always call me Billy Money?" He says, "Because every time I say Billy Money, it reminds me of Ray Harmon, and he was very, dear and close to me." So after that, I said, "Well, you can call me Billy Money all you want to then." So
Yeah, hard to argue
yeah,
when someone says that.
yeah. But he was
But I could imagine not knowing anybody. It might bother you a little bit initially.
yeah,
You just
because
rock up to a group you've
yeah,
never met.
I just never had anybody. But it's all good, it's different. But now it's kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
now it's like almost a term of endearment, So
Yeah.
exactly.
I am glad that you told that story because a friend of ours recently I was hanging out with, and I won't say his name on here, but he ran into somebody who knew about you, and they were kind of joking around about the Billy Money thing, and he overheard that,
Yeah.
and he stepped in there and he said, hey, let me tell you the story about that name because it's not some joke. He goes, man, I wish more people knew that story.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you kind of
Because
said that because a lot of people think it's like a funny name about
yeah. Well, see,
money or
that's why
something.
I reacted to it too at first myself, because I thought it was like, I'm a doctor, I got cred, and not really, but and then like you're calling me Billy Money is kind of like a cartoon or something like that. And then when Buck told me that, I said, well, then, hey, yeah, you can call me that all you want to. And then now, you know, we had the band, the Billy Money Band, and so, and some people, you can call me Bill, you can call me Dr. Bill, you can call me Billy Money. I don't care what you call me. Just call me. Who did that? That was Groucho Marx, I think, said that.
Just call me.
Yeah.
Just call me.
Yeah, but that's I was totally not used to that because I hadn't been around a bunch of cowboys. But it's not unusual. You grow up and I got friends. They're called Skibo. The name's Ralph. Somehow or another they grew up and somebody started calling him Skibo. So everybody calls him Skibo. Or so that's not unusual.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's funny because people do that with all kind of things, right? Like you kind of read into the situation. You have no idea the story behind it. And then you hear the story, you kind of feel kind of dumb inside for having.
Yeah, I've got a picture of who did that picture? Who did that picture? It was Shane's wife, his ex-wife, painted a picture of Ray Harmon. It's beautiful. I haven't got it. I've got the picture, but I have never put it in a frame. But I've got a copy, a picture, a link on that picture.
I think you put it in your website, right?
On the Billy Money Band.
In the gallery.
No, it was
It's on
the horsemanship.
Yeah, plugging you already.
Yeah.
Bill Barnes horsemanship.
Yeah.
But it's on there. There's a gallery. I think you put it in there.
There's
not a picture of Ray Harmon.
Yeah, I'm not a clinician. I'm a seminarian.
But we got to save that for later because I don't even think that's live.
Yeah.
What was that?
It'll just have to be live.
Joe,
I can hear Leroy.
Leroy said your hair's parted on the wrong side. Can you fix it?
Hey, are we gonna
have to live with that?
Are we gonna have this dog doing chasing the tail, growling during our little thing here? I guess that might be something to talk about.
It's authentic.
It's very authentic.
I mean, my phone's beeping, so
See, now that's not authentic. That's just unprofessional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to a
What do you
podcast
guys,
the other day, Joe, and somebody's phone did the vibrate mode like 4 times. And it was so aggravating.
Yeah, I make everybody in the operating room cut their phones off. And if you're a nurse operating with me, and your phone's buzzing while I'm operating or going off, I say step out of the room, take your phone off, then come back in.
Seems like a good policy.
Just one of my pet peeves.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Have you ever, like mid-surgery, YouTube something? Like you were wondering about
How to do something?
yeah.
Yeah.
You ever YouTube
Forgot
something?
what to do. Yeah.
Or like an innovative thing, like trying to get a screw head out, and you're like, look on YouTube for extracting
No,
a.
never done that.
Okay.
That's
Do
reassuring.
you think
I would
anyone's
be
out there
very
doing
bothered
that?
if
Oh, I
a
know. I
doctor
have.
had done that.
I know some doctors who have done that. I know some doctors who've, had the not the YouTube, but they've had the on a computer had the anatomy instructions down there to look at while they were doing the surgery. Which I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, that's kind of like, kind of self-help.
Yeah. Better to double check, I suppose.
Yeah. But that probably wouldn't happen just when you're early in your practice. Maybe later on, you kind of should have those kind of things down.
Sure.
That'd be like having the Buck channel on a big screen while you're starting a colt.
Yeah.
And a client's there.
And that might not be a bad thing to do.
No. Like, hey, you're blocking my view. Can you move a little bit? Because I'm trying to see how to do this.
That's like horsemanship by numbers,
Yeah.
Uh,
So how, I guess, is it cadavers, or how do they phase you into doing live surgeries if you're studying to be an orthopedic surgeon?
Well, first year of medical school, you're taking all these different courses, and you just kind of all 180 of you thrown into there. Some people are PhDs, some people have masters, and some people like me. I had a double majored in music and biology, and I didn't have, because I had all those courses, I didn't take advanced courses and some of the things that other people did, so I was kind of behind. But we were all caught up in about 2 months. They just fire hose, just much as you can take.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started anatomy. So you had a cadaver lab. And so you have 2 guys per cadaver. Well, no, 4 guys per cadaver. And we named ours Ernest, Dead Ernest. So you just kind of went through this dissection, learning the anatomy. And if you had a particular interest in something, I kind of thought I might want to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I was always, going back over the anatomy of all the muscles and nerves. And one thing great about the cadaver lab, they had a TV in there, and my wife, when we got married, we didn't have enough money to get a TV. So a lot of times our Friday night date, we go to the cadaver lab and watch a movie. And it was kind of like being in the movies because you had a lot of other people there with you. Cadavers. We were the only ones that ate popcorn.
kind of a dull crowd, huh?
Yeah, it's very dull. You couldn't really taste your popcorn for the formaldehyde smell. But that probably shouldn't talk about that. All right.
Yeah.
And she stuck with you.
She stuck with me. Yeah, we finally.
There you go.
She was a teacher, and so she didn't want to. She got kind of emotionally disturbed children. That's probably why she was attracted to me. But she decided after 2 years she didn't want to teach, so she sold Tupperware, and we won a TV and a car. So we were uptown, so we didn't have to go to the cadaver lab anymore.
Oh man, high cotton.
Wow. Like when you first start
That's a funny
operating,
story.
like when you're tagging one of those calves and you see someone new come and they tag a calf and they shake a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time you cut on a real live person, like
I didn't.
Were you fully brought up to that point to where no shake, huh?
No shake. No.
Do you have someone else in the room when it's the first time you cut on a live patient who is like?
Yeah, but I have been with some surgeons in the past that shake a little bit.
They just
unnerving?
drink a little something.
I don't know. They just, but they managed to do a good job. But they had a little shake in their hands.
Like just
But most of the time when that happens, they shake a little bit, and then when they go to make the cut, they stop shaking.
oh,
Something familial trimmer.
oh.
But I only knew like 2 guys, all the people I've been around who did that, but didn't make them any less a surgeon. Just something, a familial tremor. Like you see people sit still for a while and their head shakes a little bit. So something you're born with.
So, with being a surgeon, it's kind of different than if you were, I guess, just going kind of a different medicine route, because there is that physical aspect of it, right? Like there's a tactile, performance based
Mm-hmm.
part of your education.
Yeah,
As a
hand-eye coordination and
Yeah,
perception, depth, 360 awareness, all those things.
yeah. I've I've got some folks that come to the farm and ride with me that are in vet school right now, and I was talking to them about that.
Mhm.
How, especially the large animal, yeah, you have to know everything, and there's quite a bit of knowledge you have to do, but you also have to have the practical, like tactile skills, not to the level a surgeon would need, but if you're going to work, especially with large animals, you've got to have kind of that physical education as much as the
Yeah.
um, academic one.
Yeah, it's I've always been amazed with surgeons that still to this date there's no test, skill test or hand-eye coordination, or can you triangulate, you know, um, basically can you close your eyes and put your 2 fingers together? There's no test. They're doing no stereotactic test at all. And then you just say, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. You're smart and you go at it. And there probably needs to be that in the future.
Because like I've gone down the rabbit hole watching YouTube videos of like replacement knees and stuff like that. And it almost looks like carpentry when they're actually cutting on the bone. There's got to be some students that come along. They're real smart. They're great. But when they get to that point, they just keep turning up rubbish and they just can't. Or is there enough guides and tools and what do you call that? The deal
Guardrails.
you strap in there that guides your blade to get everything cut straight, like
A jig.
like a jig. There's got to be enough jigs
Yeah,
where you
but
don't have to
you
like a
can, you,
Da
you,
Vinci.
well, you got to put the jig on it with the right orientation.
Oh,
Because when you set it, you make cuts, and you may make the knee kind of wrong, angled wrong, or have not enough flexion, or tighten flexion and loosen extension. There's a lot of the minefields are there. You have to know where to step and where not to step, what to cut, what not to cut, and then how to balance. Doing a total knee. If it was just a matter of just putting a resurfacing both sides, well, that anybody can do that. But you got to balance those ligaments so they operate as close to normal as you can get them. So that's the art. That's the art.
hmm.
And that just tells that the best way to know if you've got that down is your results. And then what other people say about you, not what you say about yourself.
Yeah, I guess the patient, I mean, it's their knee. They're
Yeah.
going to tell you. They're going to feel it.
Yeah.
If something's off,
Yeah.
be apparent.
Yeah.
If they can't walk
Well,
or if they can.
difficulty doing some basic daily activities like going up downstairs or changing directions and having their knees be stable, things like that. Yeah, so it's I've always been amazed that they don't do more, hand-eye coordination, ability to have those skills, stereotactic skills that and perception to be able to I think that separates the really good surgeons from the rest. I've seen a lot of. My father was a master surgeon. I'd love to be as good as he was. Um, but of course, he's also a master um, furniture maker, sculptor. I mean, anything with his hands. He could sit there with a piece of wood, a block of wood, and just be talking to you, and then there'd be a perfect little figure of a dog in about 45 minutes. He wouldn't even be looking at what he's doing. He'd just be looking at you and carving, doing things. Pretty amazing.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yep.
I can't even begin to think about how I go about doing that.
Yeah,
without looking at something.
one day he decided he wanted to do some clay work, sculpturing. He bought a book, bought a block of clay, and every night for about 4 weeks, he'd make my mother stand at the other end of the dining room table, and he'd just mess around with that clay. And after about, I guess, 4 weeks, looked just like my mother. He never had a lesson.
Do you still have that somewhere?
No, my dad, he did it. He didn't do anything with it. He just wanted to know he could do it. And then put it up someplace and it dried up and cracked in pieces and was forgotten. Just wanted to know he could do it.
Just climbing mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild. So, I guess for people listening on the podcast, you initially kind of went down the music path, and that's
Yeah.
what one of your degrees was in.
Mhm.
Was and eventually you kind of ended up taking over the family practice. Were they supportive of you pursuing the music deal?
No.
Yeah.
And actually I was like maybe 5 hours short of getting my degree in music. But
Oh, okay.
because I
Either
just,
way.
I just had to take 5 more hours, but we were getting married, so we just, went on
Yeah.
and if I
Had to get the heck out of Blacksburg.
yeah, Blacksburg. But I didn't even know, I really didn't, I didn't want to be a doctor really. That wasn't like my passion to be a doctor. But when you're 19 years old, sometimes it's hard to figure out what your passion is. You got so many things you're interested in. But I was traveling with a show group called the New Virginians, and I had my own band, and I was writing my own music, and I had talked to some people in Nashville, and Columbia Records was interested in me coming up there and just being a writer. So I only applied to one medical school, hoping I wouldn't get in. And then I could say, well, I tried and I got turned down, and now I can be a musician. But I got in. And then I decided, well, I just need to, let's go down there. We'll get a house. We got 900 square feet, little house. And we'll go to medical school. And every year I'd go there. I didn't, at the end of the first year, Nancy says, do you like this? I said, nope, I don't like it at all. Says, do you want to quit and go to music? Says, well, the hardest year is your first year. I guess be nice to have something to fall back on in case we couldn't eat, because musicians, it's tough. And so we went the next year. And then after that, she said, what do you want to do? I said, I hate this. She said, but the first 2 years are the toughest. The last 2 years are just clinical. That should be pretty easy. Same scenario. So we finished up medical school. And then I did a record with a small label called Sword Records. It was a Christian type label, and that kind of got me back into the music a little bit. And I kept writing some and kept some contacts in Nashville. But then when I got through medical school, they said, "Well, what are you going to go into? What kind of doctor are you going to be?" And I said, "Well, everything I rotated on really didn't, do a whole lot for me. Says, I guess I'll be an orthopedic surgeon like my dad, you know. And you know, I have to say, you know, I wanted to please my dad. You know, I had a lot of respect for him, and so I applied to 2 orthopedic residencies. Most people apply to like, you know, lots of them, and they weren't supposed to, um, you know, talk to you um, in the match. They have a match program. But my father, you know, was well known in the South, and so I had the program directors of Vanderbilt, and Greenville, and Charlotte, and Augusta calling me, you know, want me to come to their program. So I went to Greenville because they had call was only every 4th night. I thought about going to Vanderbilt Nashville program because of music, but the guy told me that, you know, well, it's every 3rd night, but you don't get home till about 10 o'clock on the nights you're not on call. So I said, well, I don't think we're going to go there. But and then, but my dad. The question was, you know, was my family really for it? My mother was, but my dad was afraid that I had too much talent that I was actually going to, you know, do it. And my mom decided I needed to take voice lessons, and I was not for that because I was started playing guitar when I was about 16 and started writing music. My mom wanted me to take voice lessons, and finally I said, okay, I'll take voice lessons. And I was going over to this college called Wesleyan College for Girls, and I was taking voice lessons there. And that was a positive thing because there was a lot of college girls there, and I'm like 16 years old, 17, you know. And after about 4 months, my dad wanted to hear what, you know, what I was accomplishing, and so we had a recital. And you know, after recital was over, my dad stood up and says, "Well, that does it. The boy can't sing." And we were just, you know, that was a good experiment, you know. And I stood up and said to my dad, said, "Daddy, I'm all due respect, Daddy, you're crazy. You know, I can sing." So, but I decided he was right. I was going to quit this voice. So I went back the next week, told my voice teacher I was going to quit. And she said, "Well, before you quit, I want you to do something for me." I said, "There's a little window in that door. You see that? Okay, I want you to sing this song. And when you get to the chorus," it was a song of Romeo and Juliet theme, "A Time for Us." I don't know if you know that song, but so when I got to the chorus, "A Time for Us," she told me to look through that window, just keep walking, don't stop, and look down the hallway. And I did. And I saw about 40 girls with their backpacks sitting in the hallway. I came back around. I said, "What are they doing there?" They're there every time you give a lesson. You have a lesson. They get off about 5 minutes after you start. They get out of their class, and most of them just sit right there and listen to your lesson. And then she said to me, "So you want to quit?" I said, "Well, can I meet some of them?" Says, "No, I told your mom I was going to do this to you." Says, "No, you can't meet any of them." Says, "So do you want to quit?" I said, "And they're there every time I sing?" She says, "Yep." I said, "Well, I think we could do some more lessons." So, and then I went to Virginia Tech, and she had graduated from Virginia Tech. That voice teacher did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's how all that happened. And then when I was in Macon, when I came back to practice, I was, you know, doing music, and I kind of got to know some of the Allman Brothers, a band called Grinder Switch, and then Jimmy Knowles with Sea Level, who played with Dr. John, and played with Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. What's that guy's name? He sang all the songs of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Oh,
B.J. Thomas.
B.J. Thomas, yeah. Played for him. He played with a lot of different people, and Jimmy was an amazing guitar player. So all those guys, and then through that, I got to, you know, spend a little bit of time with Dale. Come down to Georgia.
Charlie
Charlie,
Chapin.
yeah, Charlie, and we had a nonprofit organization which we helped with some prison ministries with Chuck Colson. We did all his video productions here in the studio we had, and Charlie was our biggest donor to that, and so that was a cool deal. And we had a writing studio, and Larry Howard was a guitar player with Grinder Switch, who was opened up for the Ohm Brothers and traveled all over the place with those guys. And he had been heavy into drugs, and he and his friend of his who played for Wings was the drummer for Wings. They were down in South Florida. And they each had a plate of cocaine, and they were doing cocaine over the weekend. But Larry was doing cocaine and reading the Bible. But he had a bunch of Bibles given to him, and they all had his name on them, but he wouldn't throw any of them away. So he had about 100 Bibles. But he got one of those Bibles out, and he started reading it and doing cocaine. And about he stood up and said, I understand now. I don't know how he could understand anything. But anyway, he stood up and he coded right there. And they called the ambulance and they worked on him. And he had like a death experience there. And I can only repeat what he said. He said he was floating above his body in the emergency room. And they were working on him. And he said, Lord, if you'll put me back in that body, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And he woke up and he had no symptoms. He was wide awake, no sedation, no effect of the cocaine. And they say they did all the blood work on him and he had no drugs in him at all. So his life changed that day. And that's how I got to know him. And that put me in contact with a lot of people. And that's how I got plugged back into Nashville. And ultimately I had to make a choice to not sign a record deal and just do orthopedics, because I had a choice: do orthopedics or do music. But they didn't want to put all the money into me without me, being divided. Putting orthopedics and music. So I chose orthopedics. But now we're having fun, just kind of enjoying the music and going back up to Nashville and recording some good songs and doing a few concerts, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, so I want to take you back for just a minute, because you mentioned your dad was giving you some negativity about that.
Yeah.
And you said he probably knew that you were good. And from the sounds of your story, I mean, it sounds like you could have made it. So if he knew that you could have made it, why do you think that he didn't support you in that?
Well, let me say this. I'd have had a lot of fun, but you can be a fantastic singer, great songwriter, and not make it. It's a lot of more variables in there about making it, just besides being good. Politics, the right people. There's a lot of variables there. There's a lot of fantastic artists in Nashville who used to listen to them. And I remember one time I was up there with Dickie Lee, Polygram Records, and we were talking about a record deal. And Dickie, we were writing that morning in the studio, or just in his office, and he said, "You know what? We ain't getting nothing done this morning, are we?" I said, "No, it's kind of nothing's happening." He says, I gotta go over here. You want to go with me over here to this studio? I forget which one it was. I've got to do a couple of demos. And I said, well, how do you choose, is a girl's going to sing it? How do you choose which girl is going to sing this? Because you're going to pitch it to a certain artist. I said, well, I've got, whatever type of voice I need. I've got just more than I can deal with. Just like say 20 of this and 20 of that. And says all of them are fantastic. So how come they're not all stars? Because they all got a little different situation. This one right here, it's got this problem. This right here is maybe emotionally not really stable. You can't count on her to be there. All these different scenarios. So, but there are a lot of great artists that just the stars haven't lined up for them. They haven't made it. But having said that, he knew that I had talent. Let's just say that. But he just wanted so bad for me to be a doctor like him. follow in his footsteps. And so when my brother, who's a year older than me, got married, my brother asked me if I would sing the Lord's Prayer at his wedding. And after I did that, my dad came up to me after the service and he said, "You know what? I was wrong. You can't sing."
But you were already a bona fide surgeon by then.
Well, I was in medical school.
He already had you on the rope.
Right. So
yeah, you should have said, "All right, well, Dad, tomorrow morning, going to Nashville."
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah. But I have no regrets. I did the right thing. I've had, so far had a great life, very fulfilling.
Well, it certainly worked out for me and Ben. It's one of those things, like, obviously we haven't been around near as long and haven't made as many decisions like that as you have, but it's easy to look back and say, well, I would have done that and would have done that. But there's not much use in thinking that way.
No, you can't play the game woulda, coulda, shoulda. You'll be a sad person because you are not going to make all the right choices. That is not going to happen in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But you just deal with the bad ones, move on.
Yeah. Well, also, even if you do things that maybe you think you regret later, there's no way of knowing how that influenced all the good in your life right now.
Exactly. It's no, it's just like no telling about what would have happened if you'd have made that decision. Something worse could have happened. But, I believe God's in control of all of that. But you can't live in the past. You have to move on. And it's a character builder. Bad decisions are great for character building.
No kidding.
Because, at the end of the day, that's all you got when you die. You don't get to take anything with you except your character.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that to somebody this afternoon about you have the rest of your life to work on this. And I feel like that's kind of the light bulb moment you get to a lot in what we're pursuing with horsemanship.
Yeah.
Is you constantly start to get back to, it's not getting it. It's not getting it all perfect.
Yeah.
That'll make me happy.
Nope.
Because then you'll just have something else.
Yep.
And then you'll just be this consternated, tight person that's just always trying to get it.
Yeah.
Trying to get it right.
Yeah. You can't worry or be concerned about making sure I do all this right, because just make sure that you're pursuing it and you're getting better knowledge and you're being a good student. And then if you're being a good student and you're hooked up with the right knowledge, then it'll happen in its own time. But you can't be, getting too stiff about where you are, and especially don't compare yourself to other people.
Yeah,
because it's your journey; it's not their journey. And like we've said before, I didn't say this. I don't have many original thoughts. Most of I just hear great things that other people say, and I just say them. But someone said that there's no destination really to the journey. The destination is the journey itself.
Yeah.
And that's true. But at the same time, I mean, I want to make more bridle horses. So that's a goal, And first one wasn't that great. Maybe I couldn't even call it a bridle horse. The second one was a bridle horse, but the third one's a lot better, and the fourth one's even better. I mean, it's and I'm not really good at calling it a bridle horse. So what I do is I just let Buck tell me if it's a bridle horse or not. Like I'm the worst about going to the next level. I just kind of, like the other day, he was telling me, he says, why isn't that filly in the 2-rein? So you think I should go to the 2-rein? Well, yeah, 6 months ago. I said, oh, okay, I'll go in the 2-rein. I guess I'd rather be late getting there instead of early.
So like I know you well enough to know, and Joe too, that you're on fire about this stuff,
Yeah.
horsemanship. And so back when you first had your light bulb moment or you hooked onto this, was there something else you were doing in your life at the time this took the place of, or were you kind of searching, kind of looking for something to apply yourself at and
Yeah.
go on this journey that we're on now?
Yeah. I was looking for something that I could sink my teeth into. And I just was doing orthopedics and had a family. And orthopedics was, at that point in time, had to do trauma call. And when you're doing trauma call, your early part of your orthopedic career, it just consumes you. And back then, we didn't have traumatologists. Now, major hospitals have a trauma team, traumatologists. And if you get a bad, car wreck, now, if I was a young guy, I would never see that patient. Let me go to the trauma team. But when I was coming along, you'd be on call and you were just praying and hoping that you could get by the night without somebody calling you. But then you get the dreaded call. Tractor trailer ran over 2 cars and you got 3 victims and they're broken up. And so you got to go in there and you're spending forever putting everybody back together. And it's very stressful, challenging.
Where do they get the trauma team from? Are they surgeons, or do they
yes.
get the body like prepared for you to see?
No, they're doing the trauma team. They're orthopedic trauma team, so they're going to take care of all the bad multi-bone system injuries.
Wow.
So that I sort of gotten to where I wasn't doing as much trauma, and I was thinking. And I grew up. My dad was an orthopedic surgeon, and we had 2 farms. We had crops farm. I think it's about 800 acres, and we had row crops and soybeans and even circular irrigation with turnip greens. We contracted out with Southern Frozen Foods Company. I was down there in South Georgia, and then we had cows up here in above Macon, Georgia, and timber. And every afternoon after school, I was up here on the farm. My dad had let me play any athletics. And so we were, underpaid farmhands. So I grew up, with cattle and hay, baling hay and working. And when we picked cotton down in South Georgia, after the pickers were gone, my dad gave us sacks, and we had to go there and pick up the cotton that they didn't pick. We didn't have that much cotton, but probably, but he was teaching us lessons. It was good, picking pigweed out of a soybean pasture. I said, why don't you spray them? He says, we don't want to spray them. You get a sack and you pick up pigweed. And the yellow flies would be terrible. You'd have to wear a baseball cap with a T-shirt on top of your head, wet down with cold water, so you could sling that T-shirt around and swat those yellow flies away. So I had an interesting childhood, but that I had a love for the outdoors and animals, and so I was chosen to go to the Olympics to take care of the horse event. And that was 1996. And I saw those horses, and I was there for 2 weeks. And I just started, because we had a couple horses growing up, and I rode a few times here and there. But that kind of lit my fire, and I started reading some books and stuff like that. And then I had a friend of mine who was kind of a horse guy, I said, buy me 5 horses from this horse sale. And this was a typical country horse sale, The guys up there saying, "Yeah, you get this horse right here. It's a kid's horse. It's a kid's horse. He's so cowy. He's so cowy. He'd rather whinny than moo than whinny." That's what he said. He'd rather moo than whinny. But anyway, so I got 5 horses. I don't know why we didn't. We got along fine with them. I don't know why. Nobody got hurt except for my wife got kicked 3 times the first time she was riding by another horse while she was on her horse.
So why the number 5?
Well, I figured I needed 2. Well, we had 1 for Nancy, 1 for me, and 3 girls.
Yep.
So that's 5. And everybody rode for a little while, and then the girls kind of wanted to quit, and that left Nancy and I, and my youngest daughter. And then I remember how this happened. Oh, so I was thinking, I'd done this for 2 years, and I was getting kind of tired of it because it's trail ride, and horses have, you had to beware that horse is going to kick you, and everybody was drinking and falling off their horses, and heck, I'd be taking care of people getting injured the whole time I was out there instead of riding a horse, So I'd looked into team pinning and team roping and just different things, and I'd about decided I'm probably going to just not do this anymore. And then somebody told me, we're having this clinic over here, and a guy named Bob King, who's rode with Buck Brannaman, said you really need to get, find Buck Brannaman, and that's what you need. And I said, okay. So I told him they were having a clinic. So I said, well, I don't probably need it, but my wife and my youngest daughter would really benefit. So I sent them over there, and I came over and watched. And when I started watching it, I kind of lit a fire in me. And my wife, I was so amazed that my wife was telling me, this is what you've been looking for all your life, honey. And I said, really? And I was amazed at her because the next weekend, she said, hey, let's go down to the farm and do some groundwork. And from my wife, I mean, you two guys know my wife. That doesn't sound like my wife, does it?
Not at all.
Not at all. She's pretty frou-frou. But but she wanted to do it, and for a while we rode together. And she had an accident with a horse, and that was done. But that kind of got me interested, and then I decided that I need to go find Buck and watch him. He was in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I rode up there and watched him, and Kip was there. First time I met Kip, and I watched him, and I just said to myself, one day I'm going to look like that, and that just lit my fire. And then I tried to figure out when's the next place I can go to his clinics, and here I am. So it's been a journey.
The rest is history.
Yeah, boy, it's been a journey, and I'm still, nowhere near where I want to be. I ain't all that, but I am chasing after it.
At the time when you first saw that, did you think it would be this difficult?
No. I remember there was a time where you figure things out. I figured, oh golly, that's pressure and release. Oh, that's simple. You want to get them over there. You just dig a spur in them and take your legs so they can get over there, and that's pretty good. It's kind of like riding a motorcycle. I thought I really figured out something. But so I figured out. Further I went along, more difficult it got.
It's interesting though, huh? Because you could do the motorcycle horsemanship, the pressure and release thing, and you could get that done to where it moves off your leg.
Yeah.
And then I guess you could be satisfied if that's all you wanted.
Yeah.
But you get that done, and then if you're like, no, this still doesn't feel right, then you know that you've got the bug and you're on the journey.
I think it depends on who you're around. So I had Buck Brannaman to compare it to. So I'm motorcycling around, and then I watch him. And I said, no, I'm not satisfied with motorcycling. I want to look like that because he's like, a part of the horse. It's like watching Ray Hunt ride. It's like seamless. smooth,
Yeah.
and just and I just happen to be like a lot of you guys. People probably listen to this podcast. I was one of those guys that's what I wanted. It was something that would I get very emotional about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never had something that I pursued like that kind of, undo me in the middle of a pasture and nobody around.
Yeah.
When something I've been working on, I figured something out, maybe something even really small, and it just kind of took my breath away. And you sit there and drop your reins, and you're like crying like a little baby. So there's not many things that I know that do that to me.
Yeah.
Except for my relationship with the Lord.
And maybe, your wife a little bit, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, but we've been married so long, we're so much a part of each other. It's hard to separate us. We're like, so I don't know. That's all I'll say about that.
You're just
But
numb
Nancy
to
does
it.
make him cry
I'll
from
plead the
time to time.
fifth.
You're just numb to her.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is funny how I think Ben's right. How you can think that, like, you can think you're kind of on the mountaintop, right? If
Right.
you have nothing to compare to.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, even I've heard multiple people that I've talked to, and Buck said the same thing about Ray. Like, Buck will say the best I have ever felt about my horsemanship was the day before I met Ray Hunt.
That's right.
And I know several people who have said, yeah, I really thought I had something going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Buck ride and I was like, oh man.
I never have been at a point where I thought I really had something going on. Because I'm just, it's like every time I get to a certain point, when I get there, I see, the view is different. I see a mountain that's even higher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like, trying to grab, I don't know, in the shower or the ice on the ground, you're trying to grab it. It keeps slipping away from you. You keep chasing it. That interview, that little interview they did with Ray Hunt, and he was when he was older, and I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years before he died. They were sitting around after a clinic, and he said he's not there yet, but he's still chasing it. That's Ray Hunt talking.
Wow.
So
yeah, I think sometimes early on, it's almost like you're climbing a mountain, a real mountain, and you get to what you think is the top. And right about the time you start getting ready to camp out and you're like, well, I guess I'm here, that fog clears and then you see more. And then after a while, you get to where you have to get to a little spot that levels off for a second. And then but you've seen the fog clear so many times that you believe it. So you're like, I'm going to try to get there. You get there and then you just start looking up and the fog clears because you believe it will. And there's more. Because sometimes, well, maybe that's just me, but for me, sometimes
that's a good way to put it.
I know there's more there. It's like going to a clinic. Like after a while, you don't really know what you're going to take away from it. Or there's times I'll ask you for help or ask, Buck a question. You just don't know what you're going to get out of that. And you almost feel stupid asking the question, but you believe that you'll see something. So you just wait it out. And then sure enough, it hits you in the face. There's a huge realization that comes with.
Yeah. And I'm sure that a lot of people feel this, I don't say this out of, being, don't take this as being arrogant or anything. But when you've been doing this, for 20 years and not playing at it, but you've really been pursuing it, and I've, been to a lot of clinics and with Buck and travel with him. And I'm always, every time I go on like a 2 or 3 week deal, I'll say, everything's probably going to be this routine. I know the progressions. I know. So I'm probably not just going to hone up on what I already know, have fun. I just kind of thinking to myself, yeah, I'm probably not going to really learn anything new. Now that's arrogant. So, okay, but I'll have that thought. Am I gonna learn something new? Because I really would like to learn something that just like would be earth shaking to me. And I have never ever gone to a clinic with Buck and traveled with him since I started doing this with him since 2012. That I have not had that moment where, it may have been a small thing, but it was monumental about the doors it opened for me. Just one small little thing. So I just I'll keep going back to Buck, plug in with Buck as long as I can till the day I die, because I'll always get something great about being around him, and it's always something.
Yeah. Well, he's an unusual guy. There's so many people out there teaching horsemanship, but he's undeniably light years ahead. To me, and to a lot of other educated people.
I'd say so.
I'm uneducated in that group, but
he's not that good of a golfer.
Yeah, but you can't kill at everything.
Yeah,
we find that out all the time on here.
Every time I play with him, I try to dumb my game down a little bit just to make him feel good about himself.
Well, your secret's safe with us and all the rest of us.
But I totally agree with you. Yeah. It's but it's like Buck says, they're not China dolls, the horses aren't, it's just, it's just the deal. You just, get to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was going to say that just reminded me, and I've probably told this story to you guys, but I don't tell it to a lot of people, but I guess I'll tell it to everyone now that it's on the podcast.
All right.
I like you were talking about Buck and him being so knowledgeable. I remember, growing up, pretty much my guiding light with horses was my mother, because she had been a professional in the industry and at least in the dressage world.
And she was like at Virginia Tech, the head of the equine program there.
Yeah. So she was the taught the head of the riding program at Virginia Tech, and had been a Grand Prix dressage rider on horses she had started and made herself, which isn't the case for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember when we watched the Buck documentary for the first time, we were sitting there, and I had to have been like 13 or 14 at the time, and there's just like some montage of Buck riding, and we're quietly watching, and she goes, "Oh," and I was like, "What?" She says, "Oh, well, he's better than everybody else," and just said it like the most frank, "Oh no, he's better than everyone else I've ever seen ride."
There you go.
And and she, she had been to Olympics and big international events. She had seen what people would consider elite riders. And it was just like, that always stuck with me, how all of a sudden, she's just watching Buck ride Rebel out in the pasture. Mm-hmm. And she goes, "Oh, he's better than everyone else."
But
and that kind of is seared in my brain.
The secret is,
that's pretty cool.
is that Buck never stops learning.
He's on the
Mhm.
move.
Yeah, he's he's getting books to read, studying. He's honing his art, and I think, contrary to a lot of people we see who they go to 3 clinics and then they are a clinician, and they're giving lessons and teaching people and putting their shingle out there, and they're even, this is even funny, they're even calling it that they're doing clinics, they're teaching buck Brahman horsemanship. And that's kind of funny if you think about it. I know that's kind of, you see people do that, but they really don't understand what they're saying. Um, there's only one person who can do buck Brahman horsemanship. Buck.
Yeah.
You need to have your own horsemanship, but it's pursuing the knowledge. And knowledge is what it is. I wondered at one point in time, and I'm kind of a little concerned about telling this story,
Well,
but I'm going to tell it anyway.
we'll edit all this
can-
out.
You can judge me if you want to,
Air quotes.
but we have people that come work on the ranch here. We're have a ranch in just above Forsyth, Georgia, and it's about 500 acres, and we have traditionally run about 200 Black Angus commercial herd cow calf operation, and then we also for about 16 years were co-owners in a ranch in Nebraska, the Sandhills, and so that gave me some great experiences. But when Buck talked about, you know, how you feeling back to, well, Ray said, feel back to the horse feels back to you, so you both feel together. And so I would be riding with these guys who were, here, like two guys at a time, like an internship program. And they'd be on the horses of mine that I let them ride, that I'd decided I'm not riding anymore. They got to have a horse ride. They'd be having trouble with the horse. And then I'd say, I get to where I just like, oh, it's driving me nuts. Let me get on the horse and show you something. So I get on the horse, and after about, 5-10 minutes, horse started feeling like my horse, the one I was riding all the time. And so I asked Buck, I said, now, what is the difference? Why do I get on that horse? And all of a sudden things start working out really good. But the other guys, just kind of, and I just wanted to hear this. I said, it's not that I have some kind of, amazing talent or some a mystic ability or something like that. Is it? I said, is it? Because I didn't think it was. And he says, no, you don't have any magic. And I don't have any magic either. But what we have is applied knowledge. You have knowledge. And that's what people don't understand. We all have different talents and gifts and abilities. So some people can pursue this quicker than others because they're more talented in some ways, more athletic maybe. But still, it's back to knowledge and be able to apply that knowledge or fit the horse. You can say it all kind of ways, but you're not ever going to grow if you don't increase your knowledge. So it's your search and to keep pursuing it. And more knowledge gives you the ability to progress in your horsemanship. It gives you the ability. Doesn't mean that you're going to do it, because we know all kind of people who have a bunch of knowledge but can't apply it.
Yeah. Well, like back to the folks that do the clinics and stuff, like very assumingly almost. I feel like I kind of have a little understanding for that because, like, early on in this, when you get around it, especially Buck, like, I still am, but I was very enamored by him. So you want to be like him. So part of being like somebody is emulating them. So early on, and hopefully those
Is
people,
that why you always wear that coat that looks just like Buck?
yeah, that green one. I'll tell that story too. But there's a thing where you want to emulate somebody. And so part of emulating Buck would be doing clinics. But hopefully along their journey, they realized one way or another, because Buck painted it real well. When he was on our podcast, he said he kind of painted a picture of like a brotherhood of horsemen. Because the whole doing clinics or not doing clinics, people outside of that real commitment to following this, I don't think they'll ever understand that. They'll just think, well, why don't you just make some money and do some clinics? You know more than them. Teach them, you know? Inside of this, it's different. And Buck painted it really well. Remember that, Joe? When he painted the picture of the vaquero culture and the bridle horses and all that. And he just said, you know, think about it. That was like a brotherhood. And you were a part of that. You had some status. And you were held up by your brothers. You held each other to a code. That's pretty cool. I'd like to be a part of that. And the way he said that, I thought, you know what? That sums it up for me, because I've looked at this a few ways and I try to have some understanding, and I'm having it now. But at the same time, for those of the people who, whether you're a newborn or you're in the middle or you're real handy, whatever the scale, the way I perceive it, it is a brotherhood and it's something worth being a part of. And if you're inside of it, you should be respectful of it.
Yeah.
And once you get to that point where you're aware of it, then I think that's the point in your journey where, if you've been maybe kind of hawking some information, just trying to emulate somebody, make money, doesn't really matter why, you'll probably get to the point where you go, oh, wait a minute. You very peacefully and quietly kind of get under a rock for a little while.
Well, yeah, that's well said. I think it makes you want to. You'd like to be a part of that brotherhood or association, and you don't want to be some asshole.
Yeah.
That separates yourself from all of that. By getting, your ego in the way. You'd like that not to happen. Now, it doesn't mean everybody has to be a robot, and it doesn't mean you can't ask questions. You can't doubt. You can't say, I'm going to go a different way. And we have to respect people's decisions. As they are also pursuing knowledge, and then the way they pursue knowledge, that they go a little different way. We don't have to agree with them, but it doesn't mean they can't be a part of the brotherhood. This is not, Nazi Germany. We don't burn people if they don't believe exactly the way we believe. But it's still a brotherhood. We're all pursuing the same thing. But there's a lot of other variables in there that make things complicated. But
yeah. Oh yeah, but that green jacket, I don't know if I told Joe this or not, but like 2 weeks prior to going to that West Virginia clinic, I was watching a Steve McQueen movie. Really good one. And in that movie, he's got a green bomber jacket. And when sometimes somebody in a movie's wearing something and they just pull it off? I mean, Steve McQueen did that with everything he wore. And you think, man, that looks cool. Like, that looks comfortable. That looks nice. I was like, I got to get one of those. So I ordered that jacket. And then 2 weeks later, we're in West Virginia. And because of the nature of that clinic, and you did a concert that weekend, and
right,
we were all over the place. So I got to that clinic real late that morning, and I come, sauntering in my green jacket. And lo and behold, Buck's got his green jacket on.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well. So that's when that night we were going to the restaurant. I said, "Hey, so what are you wearing tomorrow?"
That's right.
And he was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Why? I don't want to get it wrong.
Well, if you
I wanna
dress
make
like
sure
him, then you'll start.
we got the
You'll
same
be being him.
same deal going on."
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and I'll tell you what. Through this.
Yeah, I'll put the link to that jacket in the bio or whatever to this podcast. If anyone else wants to look like Buck, you can get one of those.
Yeah, and I tell you what, this this last 24 years, I've met some great people, had fantastic experiences just from the very beginning when I started trying to figure out, I wanted to do something. I wanted to, like 1997, I said, well, I got to be around cowboys, and I had a brother-in-law who had a friend who has his brother-in-law owned the Willow Creek Ranch in Casey, Wyoming, and he was said I could come out there for a couple of weeks. So I flew out there and came out there and rode their horses and rode all over the 60,000 acres where the hole in the wall was. Butch Cassidy's um, remains of his cabin were there. The Johnson County Wars up on just base of the Bighorn Mountains, all the sheep rock monuments, everything, and driving cattle around for 2 weeks. And then I guess that sold me. I'm gonna figure out how to be good at this. So just one thing leading to the next thing, but just meeting all these different people who are just just salt of the earth people, good just good people who are also just working people. I know, like in Nebraska, where Bobby Gordon, I bought this place in Nebraska. They moved from New Mexico up there, and you always thought these, you got a big 60-foot rope, big loop, sliding rope, slick horn, and then neighbors would come over, and these guys have rubber on their horn, and I kind of first looked at them kind of a little bit jaundiced eye, but then and one day, Bobby said, "Hey, Billy, take 2 guys with you. You got these steers that have left their mama. Y'all go out there and rope them, tie them down." And he said, "You choose 2 guys." Well, I Hyde Kramer and another guy, I think it was Montana, something. 2 local rancher guys, I took them. I've been watching them, and they may not sled rope, but they knew how to, when they necked a calf, they ride forward, take the pressure off the calf. They handle stock well. They were handy. Their horsemanship wasn't the greatest in the world, but they knew how to negotiate to get the job done. So sometimes I think we can get too uppity, and there's some cowboys out there that don't just ride exactly the way we do, who can damn well get a job done. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. I totally agree with that, Bill. I was actually I was talking about that with someone today, where you can strike such a balance between being a complete purist, but then when you become a complete purist, it's almost like there's no practical application anymore. So then you have to realize, like, well, you need to get a job done, with your horse, whatever you're doing. And then in that job, strive to have the best horsemanship you can possibly have, which in a perfect world, they would merge one and the same. But it's
well, the different,
a lot of times people aren't willing to meet in the middle.
That's Leroy Brown. He's letting us know he's here. Miniature Dotson. He's a funny boy.
Yeah. But I
Well,
think you hit that on the head, Joe, because like the whole idea of being a purist, it just doesn't fit life very well. Even like I think that makes me think of the Puritans, great ideals, doesn't really work. You can't make people
Yeah.
be perfect. And so same in this. There's like the pursuit, but there is no perfect. So like being a Puritan, a purist, whatever you want to call it, it
Mhm.
doesn't fit life. It doesn't even fit nature. And that's what you're writing.
well, but here's the difference in real life with what we're pursuing. So if I go out there and let's say I take, those two guys are really handy. We go out there and get a job done. Well, the job is the most important thing. So my horsemanship, I may have, you know, gotten off balance, done some things I didn't really want to do, but I got the job done. We get back to the ranch or on the way back to the ranch, I'm correcting the mess that I've created in my horse. And
Mhm.
maybe the other two guys are just riding like, you know, this is everything's good.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They've learned how to negotiate, get a job done you know, with what their level of knowledge and what their deal is.
Yeah.
But the difference here, it doesn't mean uh, that we shouldn't, pursue it. Just means that the realization is once you do a job, you got to realize that if you're probably not going to do it perfect, and you're going to build a brace, and you want to take care of that and get your horse back in balance, so you don't ride your horse um, with a brace.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people ride their horses with braces and don't even know they're doing it. So that's the
100%.
that's the challenge. That's the pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, that too is what makes it so impressive when you see someone do a real life job and everything falls into place, you know, because of the level of difficulty there. Because I guarantee the amount of people that can, maybe ride a pattern in an arena and make it look really good. Um, that's a lot more people than someone who can go outside or just do any sort of job under pressure
Mm-hmm.
and still have the horse look that good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. Horses love to have a job. This afternoon, I got home and um, my wife and I had a little funny thing happen. So she had been off with grandchildren in Milwaukee and St. Louis, and I'd been driving her car because my truck battery was dead. So I had her keys, one of those keys, that just what do you call those keys?
I don't
it's
know.
a fob.
Like the key fob, yeah.
Yeah, so
Where
it's
you just get
Yeah, it's a
inside the
fob.
car and
yeah,
it knows it's
It's
in
not an
there.
actual key.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't want her to. She was going to go to her car. I didn't want her to forget it because I had it in my car. So I put it on the passengers above the door because it'd be obvious if you're going to your car, you see that. I thought, but I was going to call her, but I had some things get in the way, like riding horses and doing surgery and writing a song or two, things like that. So I forgot to tell her. So she was going to town today to do some banking stuff, and she called me. I was just getting out of surgery about 12:30. She called me and she says, "I've been sitting here for an hour." Says, I don't know how my car started, and I drove 25 miles to your office, and then I did my business and got back in the car, and it wouldn't start up. I looked all over the car, and the keys weren't in it. The keys were in my pocketbook, and I told her, I said, "Well, I know where your keys are." She says, "Where?" They're probably on the driveways, mile and a half. Our driveway is gravel road coming out of the ranch. It's probably somewhere on the right side of the road. Why is that? Because I put the keys on the top of the right front door. And so she was very gracious. She still loves me. But I got home and we're going out to Cav, this afternoon, Ben and intern. And I said, well, y'all do that. I got another job. So my job for about an hour and a half this afternoon was riding up, checking the right side of the road for a mile and a half, seeing if I could find her key. But I didn't have any success. So I'm in the doghouse right now.
Well, I noticed you had one of those tags on your set of keys.
Yeah, I got. Yeah,
You have that on yours, right?
Yeah, I have my own.
Yeah.
So
you got to get another one of those.
She's got to get that done.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back about meeting people. I mean, I just met so many great guys. Like Zeb, Argan, and Joe Walters. You can just keep naming people.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to take this in another direction because I know you've started doing a few lessons, and you're going to do, a couple of group lessons, like a small clinic type of thing.
Yep.
And I've known you almost, a little over 3 years, probably 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, you have been somebody who, to me, embodied, really stressed, a real respect for the people that come before us. No matter who you are and who's before you, be respectful of them, And you've really helped put that in me. And
I appreciate that.
And I really admire that. And that's something ever since I've known you, you were very respectful of Buck or anybody who's helped you to get to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And but you've been working at this. So at some point, I've heard Buck say that right in the clinics where he says anybody can teach something, at some level, but you don't want to be the guy who's just like teaching almost nothing because your level's almost nothing. Because there's lots of that going on. What do you think changed?
It's a judgment call.
Well, I guess so, right? I'm not judging, just me, just judging myself. But so I guess at a certain point, what do you think changed for you, or not that anything changed? Where do you see that going?
Well, I don't have it quite figured out yet.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what I kind of think. I never, like you were saying, when I first got into this, I was so excited. I figured out, was trying to figure out people want to do this. I will buy a big ranch out west, and people can have houses on it. And we'll have a resident trainer. And they can come out there and experience the cowboy experience and crazy stuff. And then I came back down to earth. That's the newness of things. You think crazy stuff, but I wasn't doing it because I wanted to make money, or that I wanted to be affirmed in anything. I was just excited about the process. And then I decided that I don't want to do clinics, And so then Buck was here having surgery. 2012, I think it was, and he was sitting right where you are, Ben, and we're having about a 2-hour late night discussion. And he said to me, well, so when are you going to start doing clinics? And I told him, I said, I tell you what, I've been riding with you since 2001. I've been riding horses since 1997. If you ever catch me doing the clinic, you can shoot me between the eyes. Just plug me. I'm gone. I'm never going to do clinics. I don't know enough. and I've been working at this pretty hard for, at that point in time, 14 years. I don't know enough. And then, so that's the way I felt for a long time. And then I had more and more people, calling me and asking me for help. And I just, over, I guess, the last couple of years, I felt like, I needed to, step it up and do some private lessons. Buck has never told anyone, this is a quote unquote from Buck Brown. He's never, ever waved the magic wand over anybody, and said, "You are now a clinician. I send you out to the world to further the cause of my horsemanship." Buck Brown has never done that to anybody. And Ray didn't do it to him either. And Buck had tremendous respect for Ray. He never talked about, when he started doing clinics, he never talked about his clinics around Ray or what he was doing clinics or anything. I think one or two times Ray may have said, "Well, how are your clinics going?" And Buck felt embarrassed to even say anything about it. That's how much respect he had for Ray. Well, I feel the same way. So when I had enough people, ask me to help them, I felt like I needed to help them. So I decided I'd do some private lessons, and then that grew into me doing some small group lessons, which is kind of like a clinic, but at first I just called them seminars. I even joked with Buck. I said, "I'm not a clinician, I'm a seminarian." And some of the guys had T-shirts printed up saying Bill Barnes Horsemanship Seminars, So, I don't know. I just think, I have tremendous respect for Buck, Ray, Tom, and I don't go into doing a clinic. I go into it with tremendous respect, and I held out a long, long time, but I like sharing what Buck's taught me, and I have a decent understanding about how to help people with their horses, and I just feel a need to share. But I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to, I have the advantage that I don't have to use it to make a living. But it just fits into what we're doing here, our internship program and horsemanship, and being a facilitator of other people's journey. And not saying for one moment that I've got it all figured out. I just might be further along down the journey than you might be, and I can help you maybe understand some things so you can further your journey.
Yeah, and I've always been grateful for that, and I've always felt that from you, that you're wanting to help. Funny, all the way back to the first time I ever saw you. It's funny, you were at the Legacy of Legends in Fort Worth. And I've always been kind of particular about my stuff. So I remember seeing this guy who had like a jacket on that fit him, and his hat looked good. I was like, that's a cool looking guy. I had no idea who you were, but I just thought, that guy, now he's got a sharp looking hat. Like, he obviously cares about his hat, because I knew Buck. Like, you look at Buck's stuff, right, Joe? And like, that's something about Buck. You can tell that Buck cares about his things. He cares about his horses.
Yep.
He cares about his horsemanship. Everything about him, there's a sense of care in the way he carries himself and the way he conducts himself and the things he owns. So when I saw you around the Legacy, that it was in March, right? And I was like, oh, I wonder who that guy is. And then, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're
to
here.
have become friends, and we're sitting here doing this. But
yeah, I remember.
But I've always felt that from you.
I remember the first conversation we had. you had this what was it? It was a feral horse, Mustang.
Yeah, let's just call him an old nag.
Yeah, but he's saying he had this
Be nice.
horse. Oh, I'm gonna be nice. He said he had this horse, and he was telling me the problems he's had with the horse, and I said, well, I'll tell you what I'd do just to see where that horse is. I said, you try it. We'll give you something to do. You try this out, and you call me back a couple of days, tell me what happened. I said, just walk that horse in a circle about 15 feet, and use your rein to keep his head kind of inside, and take your left leg going to the right, left leg forward, right leg back a little bit. And then if you can get him walking in that circle, do you have to hold his head there, or do you have to keep looking to the outside of the circle? And then see if you can just drop your reins and ride that horse in a 15-foot circle with just your legs. And then you call me back about 2 days, and your phone number's there. And I said, Ben, called. I said, well, how'd it go? He says, I can't do it. He says, and then you asked me, he says, why is that important? I said, oh, grasshopper.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of you starting to ask questions and whatnot. And, that's the whole thing. Nobody needs to think in this whole deal. And Buck's the same way, that you're kind of like the deal. And, you're a facilitator. We don't own, nobody owns the knowledge. The knowledge has been there for forever.
Yeah.
You're just a facilitator. That's all you are.
Well, so like he's talked about that, right? Where he jokes about people that read the little red groundwork book and they go, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Oh, that looks fun. And they kind of pick through it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like not demoting the clinic at all, but we've talked about this. There's things that get covered that you hear that you don't hear. And maybe 10 years from now, you'll hear it. Well, God willing, you're around 10 years later, right? So when you told me that over the phone, maybe I'd heard that in the clinic. Maybe I hadn't. I probably had. Well, I hadn't really heard it, but it had been said. I didn't hear it. And so over the phone, in our little conversation, you knew what I needed to hear. That's all you said to me.
Mm-hmm.
You stayed on that.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I hung up the phone, like that's what I was thinking about. I didn't have anything else to go, well, that sounds a little bit hard. What's the next thing he's going to say? Oh,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
It was that. So then I had to go work on that. So it's kind of that thing you get, that one-on-one when you have a chance to work with somebody, because that's not tough.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of moving parts. And so you have that ability sometimes to work with one person at a time, to where when you see what they need, you still can't force it down their throat. But when they ask you a question, you keep coming back to that same thing, to where pretty soon that person's idea is like, maybe there's something to what he's saying.
Yeah. And Buck is great at this. Is that, and I kind of learned that way to deal with questions from Buck. He just gives enough information that you need to get that right first before you can go on. And that's a real skill to do that. And that's being a great communicator. Because I can remember. I'm you think what I do for a living, that I would be like have no Cro-Magnon moments, And I can remember, I can tell you 20 stories about, and one particular one, I flew out to Corvallis. I wasn't going to ride. I just flew out there, play golf with Buck, and then watch the clinic. And he's riding along, and it's hindquarters, front end. And I don't know what year it was, but he says you got to, when you bend the head around, you want your hand to be in front of the horn. And I said, he's never said that before. And I've walked up to the fence, and he was riding around, and I just motioned to him to come to me. He rode up there to me. I said, when did you change that? You always just said you go to your belly button. He looked at me like I was had 3 heads. He says, I've never said that. You always say that. He's laughing at me I said, no. He said, just it's in front of your horn. I said, how did I miss that? It was a long time ago. He says, I don't know. But then all of a sudden, that little thing that I'd heard, I'm sure he said it, 1,000 times. How did I not hear that? So everybody's guilty of that. Because there's so much information. The key is, to hear all this information, but then that's what's great about Buck's Snaffle video for the progressions, the flexions. He's got it right there. It's video for you. So you have a progression. You go 1, 2, 3, and if you fall apart at 3, go back to 2. If you got 2 going good, go back to 3. If 3 is doing good, go to 4. You just keep building that feel with a horse, and you get him. You just getting more supple and more supple and more supple, and your legs mean more and more to him, and then it's the progressions.
Yeah. I mean, all to say, he's the guy. But at the same time, I was thankful that someone like you had spent time with the guy, because you had spent time with him to the point where you were like, this guy needs to stay on this for a minute. That's what you did to me.
Well,
you do it to me all the time, and it's the greatest thing on earth, because you're like, you guys can, great. It's good to go to the 100%. You should go to the Buck Brandman clinics, right? But then there's some things in that clinic that you need to stay on for a little while. You didn't learn it in a weekend.
No.
You just got aware of it, if you even heard it.
Yeah, and
I don't even hear half of the stuff.
And the thing about it is, everybody who's been pursuing this for a while realize that when you first figure out legs only in a circle, well, that's just you're just scratching the surface for that exercise. There's so much more about how you get better and better at your horse feeling back to you and riding from your seat instead of riding from your heels.
Mm-hmm.
And things, it just gets better and better. Somewhere it's like the short serpentine. At first it's kind of like I'm happy that I'm not wheelbarrowing my horse around, and it's kind of staying all 4 feet connected. But then 5 years later, you can articulate all these other things that are going on that have to do with everything that you need a horse to do in the short serpentine. But it's just it's a growth thing. It's a part of the journey, and that's why I think I'm going to do some clinics. I'm not going to be have a major schedule. I'm just helping people that want to be helped. But I will never ever stop being around Buck Brannaman. Number one, because he's a close friend of mine. But the most important reason why, even if I didn't like him, I'm going to hang around him because he's got what I need. And you got to be around people who are better than you. He is so much better than me. So that's how I get better, is to be around somebody better than me.
Yeah, 100%.
No brainer.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about Joe over there with his short serpentines when he first started doing short serpentines. And Joe was, he was he was at it. He was frustrated, and now look at his short serpentines. He's like, 100% better.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the same deal that he went through with that. It's what we all go through,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was quite the journey.
But you have to have somebody tell you. I mean, remember that time on the driveway you said, Bill, look at my short serpentines. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I told him, yep, they're terrible. And you said,
Yeah.
no, they're not terrible. Yep, they are terrible. But now they're not terrible.
Mhm.
But, you have to have the comfort level around somebody you trust who's not trying to hurt you, who's trying to help you. And that's what if you want to call it the brotherhood, that's what the brotherhood's about.
Yeah. Well, and is
Yeah.
that person trying to find holes in you to tear you down or build you up? Because there's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
They're either going to make the hole bigger or they're going to help you repair
Yeah,
that
if
hole.
you want to find holes to tear me down, I got plenty of them. They're there to be probed. But I hope that you give me some grace and kind of be kind to me.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's a big thing with like in this world, and I guess horses in general, the way people present themselves. Because, like, for example, you, Bill, like, why I consider you um one of my most important mentors is every time there is a situation like that, you present it like, you don't just say like, oh yeah, that's terrible. You say, this is how you could improve. Like, this is an opportunity for you to get better, you know? Um, whereas there are people um, in the horse world and in everything that they would just offer the criticism, and they would present it in a way where they're like, yeah, no, you're really bad at that. You're bad at that. And whether they mean to do that out of insecurity,
Yeah,
or they're just doing kind of the tough love thing.
whatever.
Um, Either way, people don't respond to it very
No.
well. But I think that is something you're very good at, where you're never dishonest with anybody, but it is pretty apparent that you're always coming from a place of, let me help you, not, I think you're bad, so I'm just going to tell you you're bad and let you stay down there.
Well, I just I mean, that's what I appreciate about the people I've ridden with is that, if you're doing a good job, you know, they're going to give you need something, you got to have some good feedback. But I want the negative feedback too. I don't want somebody to paint a rosy picture to me, you know. I want people to be honest. And, that's what I've gotten is that when I am doing something right, you know, I get a good positive feedback that I'm at least I'm on the right track, But you also, it's like Buck said one time. He says, says a lady asked, so what am I doing wrong here? He told her, and she said, well, what else am I doing wrong? And he stopped and he said, well, I don't think you want me to answer that question. So I be thankful that I'm pointing out only a few things here at the clinic you guys are doing wrong, because I'm seeing, like 500 things you're doing wrong. But if I was to tell you everything you're doing wrong, we all kind of have to get psychiatrists. Everybody have to have a psychiatrist. You get the mully grubs. You'd be all sad about things. So I think that's the thing that Buck is really good at. This is, I say Buck a lot because that's the guy I'm around all the time. I think Joe Walters is good at it too, because Joe's a good friend of mine. Um, is knowing how to not kill the search in the person. Because you definitely want to keep the search alive in your horse, but you're also important. You don't want to kill the search in you. And that's what a good mentor does. He doesn't kill the search in his student. And I don't even like to call people students. They're just like co-pursuers.
I like that. I'd trademark that one. That's good.
But
well, shoot, I think that's a pretty good place to start landing the plane, where you realize we're all in this thing together, and there's certainly people that are far ahead of us. And
yeah,
I know you're far ahead of me. And then, of course, Buck is way out there. But
out
it's
there.
fun. And once you start to realize it's fun, you won't get it all. You can't get it all at
No.
once. You know what? You may not even be perfect in your whole life, but at least you're
You're
pursuing
not.
something, and that's really enjoyable.
It's like Buck said one time that I'm the worst today I'll ever be.
Yeah.
Because I'm working at this.
Yeah. So on your music
Absolutely.
front, you have anything coming out that'll be available soon, some point?
Well, that's kind of crazy deal. I'll just kind of do a short story about this. So,
Sure.
I had a lot of my old music contacts with the Allman Brothers and whatnot came to me about 2 years ago, and they said, "What are you doing?" And in the music industry, people call me Billy. So, what are you doing with your music now, Billy? I said, "Nothing." You need to start singing. You need to start writing again. I said, "Oh, well." So that kind of Kenny Smith, you know Kenny, we went over his house doing some recording. I said, "Okay, I'm going to do a benefit concert through United Way for the. I do a lot of, charity work for the public schools and the athletic programs. So I thought I'd do something for the reading program for the public schools. So I was going to put a band together, and I tried to do some local stuff because we got a lot of good musicians here in Macon, but it was just too hard with my schedule to work all that out. So I decided I'm just going to go up there and talk to Dickie Lee, my contact with Polygram Records, and some of my old contacts, and put a band together. So I was in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and Buck had never knew I could sing, and so I did this. I'm rewinding the tape. Okay, go back a little bit. So Carolyn Hunt was here in this area with Jayden, and I was there's a like a Las Vegas type show called the Macon Pops, and they asked me to do a Kenny Chesney song at a concert. It went on Facebook, and it went kind of, people saw it. Carolyn Hunt saw it, and she said, "Billy, you ought to sing the national anthem at our next Legacy of the Legends." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And Buck heard I was going to sing the national anthem. And he goes, the only time he heard me sing is I'm joking around while we're playing golf, and maybe I hit a great shot, and I'll say to him, "I'm too sexy for my clubs, too sexy for my clubs." He would say to me, "You sing that stupid thing again, I'm gonna quit and go back to the, back to the truck and leave you here." So it really irritated him. So I would do it more often because it irritated him, because I like irritating him. Anyway, so hope you heard this, Buck. But so all that was, I did the national anthem, and Buck couldn't believe I could actually carry a tune. Make a long story short, I'm in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and this girl comes up to me and says, "Hey, Robbie Moreland and Buck says you have a really good voice, and you had a recording deal in Nashville, and you turned it down and all that kind of stuff." I said, "Yeah, it's true." She says, "So I heard you're trying to do a benefit concert, down in Macon." I said, "Yeah, I am." She says, "Well, I put on, corporate events. Let me do that for you." So of course I need to hear you sing everything. I said, "Okay." So that was Natalie Murphy. and Nick Hoffman is her husband. And Nick played the guitar for Kenny Chesney for 10 to 15 years or whatever. He's amazing. Both of them are amazing artists. And I do a plug for Nick. He has go to Nick's Wild Ride on the Outdoor Channel. Great outdoor channel hunting program. He does a great job with it. And Natalie is an amazing artist. She just signed a deal with Pam Tillis to do 60 dates a year. But they came down to the house to listen to me sing and play guitar. And I just really would rather just listen to them play. But finally, they said, you got to play us some of your songs. So Nick says, hey, I'll put a band together, just kick ass band for you. And on one condition, that I get to record those last 3 songs you played for me. I said, okay, we'll do it. So we've been to Nashville, recorded the songs. So got to get them mixed. Nick, if you're listening to this song, you heard that? We got to get them mixed. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to put a lot of pressure on Nick.
but anyway, and we're going back up there to do some more songs, and they'll hopefully in January, February, all the songs will come out on Spotify and iTunes. But we've done 2 concerts so far. We did one here in Macon. We had like 500 people there, and it was a very great success. The band is Bill Barnes and no, it's not. It's Billy Money and the Billy Money Band. And you can go to thebillymoneyband.com and you can look into that. We did a concert up in West Virginia at the West Virginia Clinic, and right next to the Greenbrier at a bar there, and had the whole band there. And man, it was a lot of fun. Everybody was dancing. And I even did we had Buck come up and do a duet with me. And, he can carry a tune, he's quite the entertainer. So we had a blast with that. So what we're planning on doing is maybe doing that more often in Buck's clinics, do a concert on Saturday night. And if you're interested in doing that, if you're a clinic sponsor, you want to do that, well, just call Taylor Ford in West Virginia and ask her how it went. But more to come.
There we go. Perfect.
Good deal.
Well,
we can't end the whole show.
How do you end this thing?
Oh, we wind it down. A big plane.
I'll show you.
A big plane takes a good long landing.
Hey,
you ever come in on one of those big old private jets? Like a big one.
Are we gonna?
I don't know if you've flown with DJ Khalid or not, but I have. And that thing takes a while to come down.
Are we gonna crab it in?
Yeah. Usually you got a good crosswind, and you got to come in a little bit sideways, and then you go, and then it stops like a super cub. Then it's done. And you guys are on your own.
That sounds like you are dating, almost engaged to somebody who flies.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn my aircraft.
You might
trying to.
You might do the music deal, Bill, but we're starting to get a grip on this whole podcasting thing. So don't you worry about how we're going to end this deal.
Oh,
that's the funniest thing. I had somebody the other day.
You guys are professional.
We were courting somebody for this, and they go, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. You go, well, you don't worry about that. We'll get you to talk. Guantanamo Bay, they've been contacting us lately, saying you guys have a way
getting people to talk,
getting all the dirt out. But
so we do the way we end most of our podcasts, Bill, is we do what's called a Mount Rushmore.
Oh,
are you familiar with the Mount Rushmore?
Well, maybe we should end it this way. I'm so glad we had this time together.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. I'm gonna explain to you what a Mount Rushmore is.
Take it away.
Do it. So a Mount Rushmore, there's all those presidents, but they had to pick 4.
Oh,
so doing for example, you do your Mount Rushmore of blank, and whatever the topic is, you'd pick your top 4
Okay.
of that topic.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, Ben, I don't know if you had any Mount Rushmore thoughts for Bill.
I've given it some thought,
But-
but he's an interesting guy, right? So I'm still
Yeah.
open.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to hear Bill's Mount Rushmore of musical artists, because I mean, clearly that had a huge influence on his life. So if you had to pick 4 artists, whether they be solo artists or bands, but you pick 4 artists that are your Mount Rushmore as far as music is concerned, and what had an influence on you, whether it's musically, growing up, whatever.
Can I
You're-
pick any artists that are current? Because your music is constantly changing.
Yeah, no, no time frame on this.
Okay,
But
I got them.
the only constraint is there's 4 of them,
I got it.
and you get 4 and no more,
I got them.
And no less.
No less.
no less.
Okay.
All right, so lay the 4 on us.
Most important. I mean, I could name 10, but
Right.
The process of elimination begins.
That's why 4 is difficult.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah, they totally screwed it up with the president, so don't go off of that.
I'm gonna throw first one at you. It's kind of surprise you. Lady Gaga.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a current.
Yeah.
Do
you want to give any explanation or just keep rolling?
Lady Gaga, because she's off the chain. She's listening to her music causes me to kind of move off my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes me think about different stuff.
I'd agree with that.
Okay, so I gotta say Roy Orbison. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I've had a lot of people tell me you sound a lot like him.
Yeah.
In your voice, so I could see where he'd be an inspiration.
I don't hear that. I don't think I sound a lot like him. But I can sing him. But
the style.
I was gonna say you sing a lot of his songs.
Yeah, when you're playing your guitar.
Yeah.
And you're writing a song. Yeah. Something about the rhythm.
Yeah.
There's a feel in there.
Well, then I need to move off of that. Lady Gaga might help me with that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Or Miley Cyrus too.
Miley Cyrus.
I was trying to get you.
I don't want to do her. No. Okay, so those 2. And I could say another one, but that would be typical. That'd box me in. So, I would say, Rolling Stones.
All right.
And James Taylor.
I knew that was going to be the last one. I knew James Taylor was going to be on the Mount Rushmore.
We were listening to Fire and Rain last night, and that song.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like that genre of music doesn't always like whatever you call it,
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't do me.
No.
But that's James
Well,
Taylor.
The thing about it is
there's like a soulful
in that era there. It's just what you're taught to like.
Yeah.
And now music it's kind of like the public has got a new criteria about what they want out of music. It has to move you, or it has to be a rote, stupid country song that every song sounds the same, got the same chords, and you can just do the country rap type thing, and that's dumbing down art. I went off on a tangent there.
That's all right.
But But anyway, those are my 4 guys.
Most of those guys are from Georgia anyway.
So what I really liked about that is one of my favorite stories you've ever told me, Bill, is I guess growing
That
up,
was true.
you had family kind of in Southside Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about going up and being in their band and they'd all have like basically it was a bluegrass band
Oh,
that
yeah.
they had,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I just remember you like sitting there like really, really introspective and just shaking your head and you go, yeah, they all wanted to play bluegrass and they made fun of me because all I wanted to do was play James Taylor.
That's right. They didn't want to hear you, James Taylor.
And that
My
to
James
me was
Taylor,
like the funniest
my
thing.
James Taylor licks were like, like you were, you should be voted off the island that night, It's
Yeah,
terrible.
because you know, being deeply familiar with Southside Virginia
Yeah.
and the bluegrass that
sir.
goes on there,
Galax,
I could definitely see
Stewart,
like
Patrick
and
County.
I've got cousins in Galax and my mom grew up in Marion, for Pete's sake.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like knowing those people very intimately
Yeah.
and then just imagining a young Bill Barnes
yeah.
with his guitar
Oh, yeah.
saying like, well, what if we played some James Taylor, guys?
No.
And just that getting shot down immediately.
Oh, listen, we would, my dad had a cabin there in Stewart, Virginia, that his grandfather, they had two factories in the area, and when the Depression hit, they all went south. But then they moved out this little cabin, and they were trying to just, grow some beans and corn and whatnot, just make a living, catch some muskrats, sell the fur or whatever. They were just scratching out a living. But the Handys lived around there, and they all played bluegrass. And so at night, everybody come over and bring their banjo, guitars, and whatnot. And we have a hootenanny, and I just play along, but nobody wanted to hear anything besides that. But that's all right. I played along with it. But one funny story, one of the Handy boys, he worked in there at the factory, local factory. They make elastic there, and elastic for underwear and that kind of stuff. I think they make underwear there too. But my older brother, he's he doesn't like people kind of invading his personal space. And he was working on a window at the cabin, and this fellow Cecil Handy came walking up to him, and Cecil liked to wear his pants about 6 inches higher than his waist. Like, what's that guy, Zirkle or
Pee Wee Herman?
No, yeah, Pee Wee Herman, way up top, right below your chest. And he came up there, and he was real country, like that Stewart, Virginia twang.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" He said, "What's your name?" So, I'm Steve. He says, "Yeah, I work over there down at the factory there, underwear factory." And he says, "I do elastic. I specialize in elastics on underwear." And then, about as soon as he said that, the guy reached across the windowsill and went down into Steve's pants. And grabbed that elastic and pulled it up so he could see it. He says, "Yeah, that's the kind I make like that." And my brother went backwards and fell over himself and everything. But all the rest of us were just laughing our heads off.
So that's like Appalachia underwear.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Be careful when you go up there. They're proud of their underwear, and especially their elastic.
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's wrap this up. But it's been fun. You can find Billy Money at thebillymoneyband.com, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And
good deal. I've enjoyed you guys. It's fun.
we enjoy you.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for what you do for us.
All right, bro.
We're glad to know you. Good to
Glad
call
to know
you.
you guys.
Mentor and friend. All right, everybody.
Good night.
See you guys.
See ya.